Hi and welcome back to the FreeFormKnits YouTube channel. I'm Haxann Evers, a knit and crochet who's free from ways of crafting led to the world of design. All the places you can find me listed right down below this video. This is my channel where I talk about knitting, crochet, yarn hauls, designs, all that fun stuff. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of those future videos. This is podcast episode, I think 58. I think I said the last episode was 58 and it was actually 57. I think this is 58. It might not be. I don't know. We are Wednesday, July 6th, I believe. And I'm filming a little bit late in the day, so there's some like shadows behind me because of the window, so we're just going with it. I'm coming to you from my home in Pennsylvania where I live with my family. We're a lot of people in a not so large space, so there won't be background noises. The dogs like to bark. It's a lot, but I do my best to edit that out. So I do apologize though if, you know, sometimes life just happens, so there's noises. I do my best. But we do have a lot to talk about here on my table. I was just reflecting. I feel like every week I say it's a mess, and it's not so much that every week's a mess, is that I typically film on Wednesdays or sometime in the middle of the week, like at the beginning of the week or at the end of last week. You know, I take time to reorganize my space and get ready for the upcoming week, but by this time it usually gets a mess just from school and crafts everywhere, so it's not too bad. I did my best to tidy up a bit, but here's everything I have to talk about, so we're just going to jump right in. So I have quite a few little finished objects that I didn't really plan on finishing. I kind of went through a need to get rid of some yarn. I don't know, sometimes I've talked about before how I don't have that large a stash. I do have quite a bit of stash now, but in the past I am very, like, I don't like have a lot of stash. I don't like having yarn in my stash that I don't have a plan for, that I don't know, like, have some idea of what I'll use it for. So I had these little bits of bulky yarn that was sitting in a bowl, and it was driving me crazy that they were sitting there and I had nothing I wanted to do with it. I don't work with bulky yarns often, and so it was just a few little scraps that I just didn't like that they were sitting there with no purpose. So I crocheted them up into a scrappy Mobius cowl. This is actually using the stitch pattern in my Tower cowl, which is part of my Beyond the Double collection, a free collection of crochet stitches meant to teach you kind of expand your stitches. I designed that I think last year, I don't remember. I did run out of yarn, and I have to like take a little bit of extra yarn to finish seaming the cowl. But this is what I did. I tried out one of my new bulky crochet hooks, I believe the 8 or 9mm hook. It was so much fun to just use up this yarn and make a little cowl. It's kind of like the perfect one single loop. I just magic knotted my ends, and some of them I didn't bother to trim, so they have some little edges there. But just, it was nice to use up the yarn. And now this is a project, and it's an accessory, and it'll be a gift or something down the line. So it was just a relief to get that yarn out of it. Was in my yarn bowl. I have this really pretty yarn bowl, fluff in my mouth, and I couldn't use it because it had these bulky scraps that were sitting there. So I did that. So I guess that's a finished object. I didn't plan on it. It was super quick. It took like maybe an hour or two, 45 minutes. Yeah. So that's one finished object. And then in that same vein, I had this container of bits of cotton. I occasionally will get in a dishcloth mood and buy cotton. I've made a lot of cotton t-shirts this year. Actually, what was funny is I found more cotton scraps after I finished this, and I realized I probably shouldn't have. I should have just saved up my cotton and made dishcloths when I wanted to, or, you know, started maybe even a cotton scrappy blanket. But I did not do that. I wanted it out of my stash. It was in a basket. I wanted the basket, and I just wanted all these little bits used up and not be in my face anymore. So I made this little, I just wanted to do V-stitch, if I'm being honest. Little scrappy, it's not even like a proper like blanket or anything like that, just this little square. I don't know, I really love the V-stitch. I think I'm holding it upside down. Yeah. I love the V-stitch. I love these colors of cotton. This is actually 2 different colors in this pink section here, and the blue. Just random bits that were too little to do anything big with, but too much. That would be like so many dishcloths, and I didn't want to make dishcloths. So I used that up. I'm sure I'll find some purpose for this eventually. It's very pretty, it'd be a nice wall hanging, but all the walls in mine and my sister's room, they're all funny shaped, just the way this room is shaped, so like there's no like space for this, but it would be a pretty wall hanging. So I did that, and I had a little bit more cotton, so I actually played around with the idea of this little square, which was really fun. This little motif, super simple, just half double crochets and chain 2 spaces and little edges that I'm obsessed with. And then actually this is like, I can use this as a bookmark. And then this was just the remaining. I don't even know what this cotton is. I think my sister had it. I don't know where she got it. It feels really weird, and I just wanted to use it up. It's just little things that I just to use up these tiny bits of yarn that were driving me crazy. So it is very fun and satisfying to have a bunch of yarn and then use it up in a project. So yeah, that's kind of finished objects, kind of not really technically, since they weren't what I really wanted to work on. I don't know, but I did that and it was fun, and it gave me peace of mind, and like, okay, I feel like my stash is under control, even though it's kind of under control. I don't know, I just need it out of my stash, long story short. So I do have more finished objects. One more. This was a finished object a couple of days ago, but I just finished him. I had like a whole I've been doing this kind of like crafting marathon thing on Instagram, where every Saturday I will like make these goals for all my projects and kind of take you along on my stories about me achieving those goals. Like it was just a kind of a fun way of making progress on everything I want to make progress on. And this Saturday, or last Saturday now, I finished this little dragon that I showed off in a couple episodes ago, Koji from the Fantasy Amigurumi book from Knitpicks. I love him, and he's sewn together. He's got legs. I think he needs, his stuffing is like coming out on the bottom. He has no tail because I ran out of yarn. Maybe one day I'll have a tail, but he's all sewn together and he's just so nice. He's such a big plushie. I do kind of want to make more plushies, I think I found a pattern for a crochet owl that I really want to do, and I also have some yarn set aside for a knitted plushie that I just haven't gotten around to yet. So, but he's done. He was finished a while ago, but I'm counting him finished again because he's now 100% done. And I'm so lazy. I had to, like, he had a little bit of gap here because I didn't have a long enough tail. I used a contrasting color instead of this yellow, which I have plenty of, but I just didn't want to get up at that moment, even though I had to get up and get more stuffing for him. I'm not lazy, but he's done. I love him. So yep, that is another finished object. And then a 100% non-debatable finished object, because it was a work in progress last time, it's 100% finished, is my t-shirt. My raglan t-shirt, my helical tee. I don't know what I'm calling this, but it's super fun. It's 100% done. You can kind of see where I did the helical knitting part. Actually, for this top I used 3 scraps of DK. All of this pink color was 3 different skeins of DK yarn, different amounts, adding up to a 150 gram skein if I combine them all together, and I used them in helical knitting. And this was my first time doing helical knitting with 3 colors, and not halfway, like near the bottom I ran out of 1 color, which I knew I would, so I switched to 3 helical knitting to 2 helical knitting, you know, having 2 attached to the project. And for 2 you have to slip 3 stitches, which I did not understand at first, because with 3 all I did was, when I got to that next color, I just picked up the color, and that's kind of why I got this tight line. If I had done the slip 3, I think I wouldn't have gotten that. So I don't know, that'd be something to experiment with, why that method didn't call for it. Maybe it would be too complicated because all your stitches are moving backward. Actually, that's what tricked me up about helical knitting. It was when you slip 3 stitches, in my head that means that you're skipping 3 stitches, but you're actually, where your yarn is, your second color, is moving backward around the work. So I don't know, that's kind of interesting. It really is hard to wrap my brain around helical knitting, like in terms of just the color management alone. So maybe that made no sense, but yeah, whatever. I'm super happy with this top. The lighting is not very good this afternoon, so maybe I shouldn't be. It's just hard to see, and the light on my phone screen is also dim. I should have turned the brightness up before starting filming because I can't really see what you're seeing. But I have these lines on here that I think will go away with just washing and wearing, I did keep this contrast for the neckline, but for the bottom hem and for the sleeves, I did do a different paler blue. It's almost white. The neckline is perfect, and I kind of didn't want to mess that up by taking it out, and also the contrast does look quite nice. I think if I used the pale, it would just kind of wash me out too much. So I like the contrast. It fits perfectly. I love it. I will wear it eventually. It's just been sitting on a pile because I don't want to forget. Didn't want to forget to show it, but it's all done. So this was just my own pattern, my own numbers. I have a really good method of coming up with my numbers for raglans, including how I like my necklines. So yep, all done, and I'm super happy that that's done. And this t-shirt, I'm kind of inspired a crazy trend, something I have never done before. Everything here, all my works in progress, they're all garments. I've never had so many garments on the go at one time. I've never only been exclusively working on garments, but I'm embracing it, I'm loving it, it's so much fun, and I'm about to ramble about all this prettiness. So we'll start with this here. This I talked about last week. This is my corner to corner crochet cardigan. I'd like to come up with a better name for this. I'm thinking this I'm not gonna hold myself to it. This might be my first ever garment pattern that I release. I have freeformed a lot of garments for myself. Pretty much almost everything, every garment I wear, almost. There are a couple that I use patterns for, that I've made up my own, because that's just how I do things. But I've never written it down, not because I can't, it's just accessories are kind of just, they are easier in the terms of writing, and it's not as like a sweater. It's just, there's a lot of time investment going into a sweater, so I've just never kind of wanted to take that on. But this, I might do it because it's so cool and I love it. So I'm almost done with it. I'm working on the first sleeve. I have to do ribbing, and it's kind of a whole debacle with hook sizes and getting the way I want it to lay. And I'm also worried about length because this is corner to corner construction, so I can't figure out the sleeve length the way I would in normal construction. If that makes any semblance of sense, but it's okay. And I have the back done. I actually have a marker. This has to be the top, and I have the two fronts, so it's done in pieces, and then you sew it up and it'll be amazing. So for my size, I did 24 inches wide, and I think I did 26 inches long. And yeah, the fronts, depending on yarn, I might do pockets, I don't know. I have one whole skein left, and I only have one more sleeve to do in the seaming, and hopefully just a single crochet edge, I think, around the borders. But it's so much fun, so quick, so satisfying, such a pretty stitch. And I'm using a 6mm hook, but I'm trying to decide what hook size to go down to for ribbing. I never usually go down in size for ribbing, which is probably why I have such problems with my ribbing and collars and things. But I'm going to try 4.5 for my ribbing, which is, I debated going to just a 5, but I think a 4.5 will be even tighter, which is kind of what I want. But I have to fiddle with that, so that's in my basket at my feet, which is why I keep looking down, because I'm looking right at it. The yarn I'm using is, I love this yarn in the Orchid colorway, I believe. I used 3 whole skeins so far, so that's 600 grams. But yeah, here it is. Lots of progress. I did actually have to rip this back. I talked about last week having to rip this back. I did have to rip it all the way back to the separation and do the less or more. I think I had to do more. Yeah, I had to do more. So that took a while. But just one more sleeve and the little stuff, so that's great. It's hard to store all these pieces of a sweater. But that's the first sweater, first garment. I have 3 more. 1 crochet, 2 knit, because I'm crazy. The other crochet one is another basic tee, and this is also kind of in the same vein of getting yarn out of my stash. All this yarn was from my sister. She gave me like all her leftovers a while ago. The lighting's really getting to me. It's probably not as bad in the screen, but my camera screen is dark, so that's why I keep looking weirdly at the camera. But She gave me all her scraps because she didn't want them anymore, so I'm using, she had all these, I don't know why, all this black yarn in different little amounts. I don't know what she was doing, why it's like this, but I'm using this and some of these more variegated tones to make a basic tee, but I'm going to do it like the first basic tee I made with sleeves, so it's going to be like a whole sweater. I only worked on this a little bit. I just started the increases. I think I'm going to my plan was to do the whole yoke in the contrasting, but I have 3 different types of contrast. 3 different types, and I think this will be too much, and I don't want to do like half the body. I don't want it to be weird, so I think I'm going to divide it up by doing 3 colors of one, 3 colors of another, 3. I think I only have 6 rounds of increasing, so divide it up, or 9 rounds of increasing, so divide it up between these 3, and the rest will be all black, maybe contrast with the cuffs and hems. So that's in here. I wanted to start that. The plan is for this to be a Christmas gift, so there's plenty of time, famous last words, but I did want to start that because while I have the pattern in my head from all the basic tees I've made for myself, I wanted to get that going. So that is one work in progress, one sweater whip. And then the other 2, this was the first one I started. I had an idea for a garter stitch sweater. I've recently fallen in love with the whole boxy construction, like the crochet corner to corner garment, and getting that right fit. So I wanted to do it knitting and with garter stitch. I've been dreaming of a garter stitch sweater. I'm in the middle of a row. I'm never in the middle of a row. Of course, when I podcast though, that's when I'm in the middle of a row. I never stop in the middle of a row. But here is the yarn. I took this from another project. You might remember I frogged a project with it because I wasn't working on it, and it's just garter stitch back and forth. It's going to be garter stitch for the back panel, and then I'm going to do like some sort of neckline shaping, and then do the front panel and then fold it over so that the neck hole will be here, and then I'll seam it up the size. I debated working in the round. The reason I didn't want to do that is because when you work garter stitch in the round, you get a jog, which I don't mind. But the problem with that is I would have a jog on one side, on the underarms for the sleeves, because I'd be knitting those in the round, and then I wouldn't have a seam on one side. If I had a seam on all sides, that would be better. So that is why I'm doing it flat, because I don't want to have one side without a seam. That just seems weird to me. If it was both sides of the body without a seam and the sleeves have a seam, I could live with that. But having the one side be perfect and the other sides be not perfect, it makes it seem like that side's wrong. So I didn't want that. So that's why I'm doing it this way. But I'm using size 8 needles. These are my pretty Caspian needles from Knit Picks, part of the Mosaic set, size 8. And the yarn is Yarn Bee Must Be Merino in the teal colorway. So this is just plain back and forth, great vanilla knitting. It'll be very boring for a while, but sometimes you just need garter stitch, and I really am loving it. So that's one. And then the next one I didn't intend to cast on. I had plans for this project. I actually wanted to cast on a different sweater. I wanted to cast on another cardigan, but for some reason this project just took root and I had to cast it on, and I did. So this is a circular yoke, and I'm going to reach into my basket here to get the book. This is the Knitter's Handy Book of Top-Down Sweaters by Ann Budd. I hack the numbers she gives just so I don't have to think about it. Because circular yokes, figuring out new numbers for each of the rounds is still something I'm trying to learn. But I just kind of hack this because necklines and stuff, yeah. So this is where I'm getting some of my numbers from. I love that book, I highly recommend that. And I started this sweater. So the plan for this circular yoke, it's done out of the same yarn, just in the blush colorway, and the needle size I believe is a 7. So the plan for this is to have a vanilla circular yoke with tight sleeves, all the way about to my hips will be plain vanilla, and then I want to do like a really long lace panel, and that will be the sweater. I'm obsessed with the idea and I had to do it. I've had it for a long time and just decided with all these other sweaters, what's one more? So that is the plan. And so even when this gets to the sleeve separation, this will also just be plain vanilla knitting. So it's really not as daunting as it might seem to have two knitted sweaters, but they're very plain, so it's okay. But yeah, I'm not even to the second increase yet. The neckline looks really wide because in the book she gives, I believe she calls for 4 increase rounds, but I always, when I make circular yokes, I eliminate the first round. I cast on the number I would have after the first increase round, and then I can pick up the stitches and adjust my neckline however I want. Like if I want a really open neckline, I can just go down a needle size or 2 and do some ribbing and call it a day. Or if I want it a little bit closer, I can knit a little bit on the right needle size, you know, play around with it. Because me and necklines, I need my necklines to be nothing up here. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. A lot of v-necks, a lot of open necklines, because I don't know why. I wear cowls and things. Like when it's cold out, I will bundle up, but just having my t-shirts and things, I need my neck. Otherwise it feels like, I don't know. I hate turtlenecks too, for the record. But that's the plan. That's why my neckline is so wide. So that's my projects. That's it. Just a lot of sweaters. Percy is making his opinions known. That's our dog. One of them. Okay, I think that is everything knitting wise I want to talk about this week. I do have plans for other projects. I am getting ready to start a new design project that's going to be really fun. Picking out stitch patterns and things. It's a whole thing. I have a bunch of tutorials I want to do and just a lot of things, but I am currently in the middle of a semester of school. I'm attending summer classes at my community college, and I'm in the whole process of, you know, it's one semester's ending, so I've got to plan out for fall semester. It's just a lot of things like that, but I have so much I want to do, and I'm really enjoying feeling productive and getting all those stuff out. So yeah, one more thing I can talk about is that behind me here, I pulled these out because I did some more organizing my craft stuff. When am I not organizing craft stuff? These are these vanilla socks, toe up vanilla socks. I'm getting ready to write up finally the pattern for my toe up vanilla shortcut heel sock recipe. Right? Toe up shortcut heel sock recipe. Yeah, just plain vanilla socks, but how to do them toe up. And I showed these quite a while back now, and these are will be the sample for the pattern. These are done out of Knit Picks Stroll tonal in the, or no, Knit Picks Stroll hand painted in the Tafita hand painted colorway. So I'm getting ready to write that pattern up, and if you want to be, when I write this pattern up, I will be then calling for testers. If you want to test knit this toe up sock pattern, very simple, very easy, but my shortcut heel construction that requires no short rows, then toe up. If you want to be a tester for this pattern, you can sign up for my tester email list in the description box below. That email list, signing up to that doesn't mean you agree to every test that I ever have. It's just when I need testers, you will get an email and with the link to the Ravelry group where there will be details on the test. And if you want to join in, you can. If you don't, just ignore the email. It's fine. So if you are someone who wants to participate in pattern tests but have a hard time finding pattern tests, I can relate to that, then you can sign up on the email list down below. So, yep. You only get tester emails through that email list. So, like, I won't spam you with anything. But on the note of spam, I do also have a newsletter. It's not spam. I send out a newsletter once a week just with updates about videos here on YouTube, about pattern highlights, new patterns, sometimes special coupon codes and stuff. So there's all that. So you can look in the description box. A lot of good things in the description box. Look it over. You'll like it. So that's something on the agenda also, to write this up. So yeah, I think that is now officially everything I have to talk about this week. So thank you so much for joining me. If you could take a moment and comment down below something you were working on, I would love to hear about it. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and I will see you in the next video. Happy crafting!